Hello, St. Bernards, and welcome to another weekly devotional. First principles. Before I came to work at the hospital, I did engineering, mainly heat pump design. I was involved in a new project which required a new type of strategy for software control. Part of the design required knowing the rate at which a room was changing temperature. I needed to know the slope of a line. And I recalled my 8th grade, where we learned the classic formula y equals mx plus b. The problem was I had no way of figuring out what m was or what b was. I had to go back to first principles on calculating the slope of a line. I won't bore you with the details, but going back to those first principles gave me the answer I was looking for, and from that point I could move forward. Similarly, one of the questions that have been baffling scientists is, when did it all begin? You know, the famous Big Bang. There are many theories out there. The Big Bang, where time just began, and Big Bounce, where theory is that the universe is constantly rebooting. NASA launched the James Webb Telescope to look at light that is said to originate at the time everything began. It seems to me in a simplistic way that the scientists are trying to develop the y equals mx plus b formula for the origins of everything when they really need to be looking at first principles. We are an event-driven species. We look at everything with respect to time, past, present, and future. We are driven by time. Time, a non-spatial continuum that is measured in terms of events which succeed one another from past through present to future. What was before everything began? In order to answer that question, we as humans must have a frame of reference. Again, we are driven by time. So what existed before time existed? God. So how do we know God exists? How do we prove something that, because of our need for a nice, neat, specific answers, our y equals mx plus b world exists when it doesn't fit the mold? Often we hear you can't put God into a box. True. However, it is important to have some concept that we in our time-driven world can understand that God does indeed exist. Fortunately, we have an incredible philosopher like Thomas Aquinas. Thomas Aquinas was an Italian Dominican friar who lived between 1225 and 1274. His works are highly regarded and studied to this day. Aquinas postulated 5 different ways to prove the existence of God. The first way, motion. Second, efficient cause. Third, possibility and necessity. Fourth, gradation. And fifth, design. I would like to share 2 of these 5 points with you. The first one, motion. He postulated all bodies are either potentially in motion or actually in motion, but nothing can be reduced to potentiality to actuality except by something in a state of actuality. Nothing can be at once in both actuality and potentiality in the same respect. Therefore, nothing can be at once both actually and potentially with respect to motion. Therefore, nothing can move itself. It must be put into motion by something else. If there were no first mover moved by another, there would be no motion. But there is motion. Therefore, the first mover is God. In Genesis chapter 1, verse 3, we hear, "Then God said, 'Let there be light,' and there was light." The theme of the first mover continues in John chapter 1, verses 3 to 5. All things came to be through him, and without him nothing can be. What came to be through him was life, and this life was the light of the human race. The light shines in darkness, and darkness has not overcome it. Continuing with Aquinas, and the fourth way, gradation. There is a gradation to be found in things. Some are better, hotter or colder than others. Things are X in proportion to how closely they resemble that which is most X. Therefore, if there is nothing which is most X, there can be nothing which is good. It follows that if anything is good, there must be something that is most good. Therefore, there must also be something which is to all beings the cause of their being, goodness, and every other perfection, and this we call God. From Psalm 107, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, his mercy endures forever. And from Luke, Jesus answered him, why do you call me good? No one is good but God alone. So yes, God exists, and out of his goodness, he has set everything into motion. Why? God is love. He created people out of love for the purpose of sharing love. People were created to love God and each other. Additionally, when God created people, he gave them good work to do so they might experience God's goodness and reflect his image in the way that they care for the world and for each other. The key here is care for the gift of the world and each other. Getting back to first principles, can we someday figure out when time began and how the universe works? There's a good chance. This knowledge is just another gift from God. The first principle for us to remember, he created everything out of love for us. Therefore, it is important to honor and show reverence to our God, to worship him for the continuing gifts he showers upon us. Pope Francis said, worship means concentrating on what is essential. We learn to reject what we should not be worshiped. The God of money, the God of consumerism, the God of pleasure, the God of success, the God of self. Worship means realizing that you and God belong together and to one another. It means being able to speak to him freely and intimately. Life's greatness does not consist of having, but in loving.